in color, the continuing story of Peyton Place. Starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Ryan O'Neill as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Connolly as Norman Harrington, Patricia Morrow as Rita Harrington, James Douglas as Stephen Cord.
Since the death of his fiancée, Anne Howard, Dr. Michael Rossi has been tortured by the recurring nightmare that Anne, despite their love, may have taken her own life. But now, in the preliminary hearing for Lee Weber, testimony has been given which states flatly that Anne Howard was murdered.
Mr. Fowler, let's talk about this later in my office. Well, Dr. Rossi, you're going to honor us with your presence in the courtroom this afternoon?
Look, I just got through reading Chris Weber's testimony. Is it true?
That's an accurate report, yeah.
Well, is it enough to get Lee Weber to trial?
That's up to the judge.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Fowler. Look, I'm asking you for your opinion. Is it strong enough to convince the judge?
Mr. Fowler, we're just about ready.
Well, I'll be right there.
It says here that Chris Weber testified that he heard his brother and Ann Howard arguing violently at the top of the bluff.
That's right.
Well, is that enough to nail Lee Weber for murder?
Are you now of the opinion that Weber is guilty? Yes, of course you are. It's too bad you couldn't see things more clearly when I had you on the stand.
All right, I know you were annoyed with me as a witness. You figured I should have been more convincing, but...
Well, you were convinced enough that Weber was guilty before I put you on the stand. What happened?
Nothing happened.
Look, Dr. Rossi, you're a responsible man, a pillar of the community, as they say. A strong point of view from you would have carried a lot of weight.
What about Chris' testimony?
It's strong.
Will it hold up?
We'll have to see. I think Stephen's about ready to start throwing some rocks.
Not many people here today. I guess they think the ball game's over. Look at the DA. Looks like he swallowed a canary. Mr. Cord, you better shake my brother up today real good. Because my little brother is trying to hang me cha-cha-cha.
Mike, I need your help. You've got to come with me right away.
What is it?
I need your okay to get that girl out of the hospital. I want her to show us exactly where she last saw Allison.
Well, you wrote up Chris's testimony. You know how important this hearing is to me.
All rise.
That girl might lead us to Allison.
District 12 of the Municipal Court of Peyton County now in session. The Honorable Irwin A. Chester presiding.
I have to hear this testimony. You know how long it's been since Allison disappeared? The longer we wait, the tougher it'll be to find her.
In the case of the People versus Lee Weber, does counsel for defense wish to cross-examine the witness?
I do, Your Honor.
Very well. Christopher Weber to the stand, please.
Mike, listen, Allison is still alive somewhere. I know it. You've got to help me find her. You buried Anne, Mike.
Let it be noted that the witness has been sworn in previously.
She's gone, but Allison is still alive.
Proceed.
Mr. Weber, how long have you known the deceased, Anne Howard?
I met her when I was 7 years old, 17 years ago.
And what happened on the day you met her?
Thanks, Mike.
I had an accident. I lost my eyesight.
To get back to your voices, you testified that you had difficulty hearing because of the wind and the tide.
The words were lost in the waves, Mr. Cord. The sea was quite stormy that day.
Possibly. But what you told Mr. Fowler was that you couldn't hear all of what was said. Specifically, what did you hear?
I couldn't quote any exact words.
Are you changing your testimony?
No, I am not.
Well, then the question still stands. What did you hear?
Mr. Cord, it's possible to distinguish voices without being able to make out what they're saying.
So you heard voices, and then what sounded like a blow, and then a scream. Yes. Do you know that Ann Howard screamed because she was pushed?
Yes.
Well, she could have screamed because she was falling for no other reason. Isn't this possible?
It's possible.
Then you don't actually know that she was pushed. In fact, you don't even know if the scream was hers. It could have been anyone's.
It was a woman's scream.
But not necessarily Ann Howard's.
Who else could it have been, Mr. Cord?
In reality, Mr. Weber, what your ear witness account boils down to is, let me see, voices, a scream, and the sound of rocks tumbling, allowing for the fact that your identification of the defendant's voice is at best questionable.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has shown no uncertainty in his identification of Lee Weber.
But he could be wrong. There is a possibility. I'm merely trying to establish that.
Overruled. Proceed, Mr. Cord.
Allowing for this possibility, Mr. Weber, what further proof can you give us of your brother's presence at the bluff?
I heard him leave.
Now I suppose you're going to claim that you can identify the defendant by the sound of his footsteps?
I heard his motorcycle take off.
Why wasn't this in your testimony to Mr. Fowler?
I could only answer the questions I was asked, Mr. Cord. Mr. Fowler had already gone on to another question.
The question of your accuracy, I believe. What time did you hear that motorcycle take off?
Late afternoon.
Well, could you give me a rough hour? Was it 5, 5:30, 6, later?
I'm not very good at judging time, Mr. Cord.
I see that you're wearing a watch with a braille dial, I assume?
Yes.
Mr. Weber, you're a law student. Do you mean to tell me that you overheard what you described and you never once thought to check the time? When it was yours with a mere touch of the wrist?
I forgot my watch, Mr. Cord. I was upset when I left the house that day, and I didn't take it with me.
And of course, I can't ask you the position of a son. We who can see take so much for granted, Mr. Weber. You know, you make me stop and think. In your position, it would be very easy for me to hate.
Well, you and I are different people, Mr. Cord.
There was a time when you hated Ann Howard. And then you learned that she was innocent. What happened then?
Did I stop hating her? Wrong, Mr. Cord. I never really hated her.
Didn't you? Didn't you transfer that hatred to the person who spent a lifetime nurturing it?
Of course not.
Your brother crippled your emotions as surely as he pushed you over a cliff into perpetual darkness. Yet you tell this court that you were and are above hatred? This would be no less a miracle than if your sight were suddenly restored right here in this witness chair.
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection overruled.
Now, can you look me in the eye? Tell me the color of the suit I'm wearing. And then tell me that you can be objective about your brother's guilt, and I will believe you, Mr. Weber.
But, Your Honor.
Overruled, Mr. Fowler.
Tell me you can be objective about your own sister's death, and I will believe you, Mr. Cord.
No, I want the truth. I'm afraid your motives are most subtle. Perhaps you're unable to even admit them to yourself. But we've talked before, Chris. Under the veneer of resignation, I've sensed the bitterness. You answer me calmly, carefully, but I hear the anger. Now, if as a lawyer, I have to prove that the anger and bitterness are there, as a man, I understand the cause. You have my sympathy.
Spare me your relentless compassion, Mr. Cord. If you must make excuses, make them for yourself.
Mr. Cord, Mr. Weber, I know you gentlemen are very well acquainted. However, I must urge that both of you confine your comments to the present case. Counsel may proceed.
Do you know the definition of perjury and its penalties?
I do.
The price is high. Imprisonment and disgrace. But for you, the price would be even higher. If you are lying, you will never practice before this court or any other court. Are you aware of that?
Fully aware.
You will never be allowed to take the bar exam. And in this one day, you can destroy your future as surely as you walk out of this courtroom and straight over the edge of Sailor's Bluff. Don't be its victim a second time. Now admit it. Admit that you don't know. That you weren't there. Admit that your story of hiding on the ledge was just that. A story and no more.
But I was there, and I heard.
Double, double, toil and trouble. Fire burn and cauldron bubble.
You sound like you're having a ball.
You know something? I am.
Hate to spoil your fun, but Mr. Stacy was telling me that he has a whole line of ready-made formula down at the drugstore. All you have to do is heat it up, then throw the bottle away after you're finished.
I know. He wanted me to use them, but I guess it sounds silly, but I did it this way the first time with Allison.
Well, it's more expensive anyway.
I guess I'm just old-fashioned.
Hey, Matthew, what's the matter, huh? It's all right. You can't be hungry. Your mother just fed you 10 minutes ago. Come on now, just settle down and be a good fella. Come on.
Ooh!
That's right. That's much better, huh?
You're very good with babies.
He's a very good baby.
You should have heard him last night.
Oh, shame on you, Matthew. On your first night home? Was it rough?
Oh, no, he just cried for an hour after his 2 a.m. feeding. Elliot was so worried he wanted me to call Dr. Rossi.
Well, they say it's good for new babies to cry. Good for the voice.
He certainly seems happy now. You're a born mother, Betty. Anyone could see that.
I'll get it. Hello?
Who's this?
What? Hello?
Miss Carson? Is this Miss Carson I'm talking to? Listen, I seen your daughter.
Oh, wait, just a minute. This isn't Mrs. Carson. Now, hold on and I'll get her. Mrs. Carson? Mrs. Carson. It's about Allison. I met on the telephone.
Allison, hold it. Oh, where is she? Where's my daughter?
Hey, lady, hold on a minute. I just want to make sure I'm talking to the right party.
This is Mrs. Carson. Is she all right? Is my daughter all right? Do you know where she is?
Maybe. I seen somebody who looked like the picture in the papers. The kid who's missing. The one with the short hair.
Where? Where is she?
Wasn't more than a half hour ago. This girl come into a cafe and asked for a glass of water. Didn't buy nothing. Just asked for a glass of water and left.
What cafe? Where?
Let me see now. I travel around a lot, you know. Gets so every place sounds the same to me.
But you must know.
This here cafe's a couple miles south of Gloucester Cove. Maybe it's west. You turn right at the fork just out of town.
Gloucester Cove? Are you sure? I never heard of it.
What's the difference? All the names sound the same in this neck of the woods.
Who is this?
Hey, why'd the kid run away? She get in trouble, huh? She start playing around with some boy? Is that what happened?
Just a minute. Who are you? What have you done with my daughter? Where are you calling from? Just give me the number. He hung up. He wouldn't tell me anything. He just hung up.
It was a crank phone call. He probably never really saw Allison at all.
Why would he call? Why? Why? I handled it wrong. I couldn't find out his name.
He was a crackpot. Stephen told me you'd have to expect this sort of thing. Some people just seem to get their kicks that way. Some very sick people.
Very sick and very cruel.